One of the defining features of 2016 was the revelation that different parts of the electorate live in completely distinct universes of knowledge. Some of the most notorious examples of this phenomenon were the many fake news stories that circulated during the campaign. Stories like Denzel Washington endorses Donald Trump, which didn't happen, or the infamous Pizzagate conspiracy theory, which ultimately drove one credulous fake news consumer to enter a family restaurant in Washington, D.C., armed with an AR-15 rifle. It's a disturbing trend that has continued even after the election. And new polling out from Economist and YouGov reveals exactly how deep the problem really is. According to their post-election survey, 49%, almost half of self-identified Republicans, believe that it is definitely true or probably true that, quote, leaked email from some of Clinton's campaign staffers contained code words for pedophilia, human trafficking, and satanic ritual abuse. That's the basis of the aforementioned Pizzagate conspiracy. Similarly, on health insurance, only 1 in 4 Republicans believe that the number of people without health insurance has gone down during the Obama administration, a thing that is both demonstrably true and also one of the signature achievements of this administration. 52% of Republicans believe that millions of illegal votes were cast in the 2016 election, a conspiracy theory Trump baselessly pushed himself on Twitter after winning the election. And this is important, it's not just Republicans. That same poll found that more than half of self-identified Democrats think that Russia went so far as to interfere with the actual vote tallies in order to get Trump elected, something for which there is no evidence. Now, instances of voter misinformation based on partisan affiliations hardly new. From 9/11 truthers to WMD in Iraq to the Obama birther conspiracy, there are plenty of examples of myths that have pervaded one small part of the electorate over another over the past few years. But what does seem particularly new and troubling is the extent to which these kinds of lies seem to be increasing in both frequency and reach, thanks in part to the increasingly balkanized and polarized ways we live and consume information. And given that the current president-elect has made a habit of stretching or making things up that are demonstrably not true, how exactly will this epidemic of misinformation affect the way a Trump administration carries out his agenda? Joining me now, Jason Johnson, politics editor at The Root and professor of politics and communication at Morgan State University. Josh Barrell, senior editor for Business Insider and MSNBC contributor. I guess let's start, Jason, with this. I don't want to think that this is so new, right? I mean, we all have confirmation bias across the ideological spectrum.
Right.
We all partake of information in very selective ways. So what is new into your mind here?
Well, what is new is this, Chris. Look, we've always had conspiracies, right? There are people who don't think we landed on the moon. There are plenty of polls that show that people really do believe the X-Files and that we've got hidden aliens. But what it comes from is a mixture of cynicism about the government and the fact that people aren't getting their information from the same place. And when you have a president-elect Donald Trump, who basically says the government's full of liars and fools and you can't trust anything that they say, and there's a lot of people who believe that, they're willing to believe that the government will do anything. And therefore, a crazy story about pedophilia or Denzel Washington actually endorsing Donald Trump is the kind of thing that some people will believe because they think the entire system is corrupt.
And, you know, part of this, too, I think, Josh, is that there's a certain basic level at which, like, even fairly basic policy details are just not known, right? So if you look at health insurance, I mean, this is the basic goal of the ACA, right? If it did one thing, more people got insured. You know, 40% of Republicans believe the people without insurance has increased, but 24% of Democrats think that, and 26% think it's the same. So at some level, it's like the basic facts of the matter are not penetrating to anyone.
Yeah, although I think they may be somewhat better known than some of these surveys indicate. There's this really interesting study that a political scientist named John Bullock at the University of Texas did, where they did surveys like this, and one was just a regular survey, and they did another one where they said, if you get the questions right, we'll enter you into a drawing for a $200 Amazon gift card. And sure enough, when you do that, the answers get more accurate, and the partisan gap in the answers declines. Now, it doesn't become perfect. There's still a lot of misinformation out there, but a lot of what this is, I think, is sort of these expressive responses where basically someone's taking the poll, they really don't like Barack Obama, and they give whatever they think the negative answer is about Barack Obama.
Right, so the question... The question between like an expressive response and an actual belief, right? Which I agree. Like there's some of that. But Jason, then I go back to the birther thing, right? So you've got it's like, you know, Obama born in Kenya? You got 52% of the Republicans saying definitely, probably true. And I think Josh is right. Like there's some level at which this is just a I don't like Barack Obama answer. But then there's also like, I've talked to a lot of people I've interviewed who really do think the guy was born in Kenya. That is definitely a thing they believe. And the person who's most associated with that ridiculous theory, is going to be the next president
Yes.
of the United States.
Yes, and that's the crazy thing. Chris, I've said this all along about birthers, that this is like Scooby-Doo logic, that somehow Obama fooled everybody except for these plucky kids and their dog that figured out he's from Kenya.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But here's the thing about conspiracies also that lead to people believing them and believing this nonsense over time. Because we've seen things that were at one point conspiracies turn out to be true, right? You and I all remember when we were kids, the idea that the U.S. government had any involvement with drugs in the inner city seemed crazy. Then we had Contra, then we found out that they actually did. So people think it's going to be true one day.
Yeah, there's a sort of mass skepticism that tends to curdle a bit on itself. Jason Johnson, Josh Barrow, thanks for joining me. I'm gonna say goodbye to you guys because right now we have breaking news.